Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has faced 41 of the NBA's top 75 players who were selected at the 75th anniversary in 2022. That is over half of the players on that list. I went through every single one of those matchups in the regular season and the playoffs. What I found will blow your mind. What was his record against each player? Which players did he dominate? Which ones got the best of Kareem? We have seen how Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James has fared against these legends of the game. But this video series is made for a player like Kareem, who has played against various generations of players. Let's go through memory lane and appreciate the greats of the past. Going in alphabetical order, we're going to start with Nate Tiny Archibald. They have faced each other 40 times, and Kareem went 27-13 against them. Here are the combined averages that they recorded against each other. For the most part, the Kansas City Kings had no answers for stopping Kareem. There were 5 times where he posted over 20 rebounds, and twice he scored over 40 points. In Tiny's case, he scored 43 points during his legendary 1973 season, and there were 4 times he recorded over 15 assists. The next player is the legendary power forward, Charles Barkley. They only faced each other 10 times between 1984 through 1988. Kareem had a dominant record of 9-1 against him. The numbers indicate that neither were at their prime, but they were still able to have some impressive performances against each other. In 1986, Kareem recorded 28 points, 7 blocks, and 3 steals against the Sixers. Then Barkley recorded 31 points, 23 rebounds, and 6 assists in 1988. We move on to one of his biggest rivals in the late 70s, Rick Barry. They went back and forth for years, and Kareem won the individual battle with a 19-15 record. They both recorded great all-around numbers, but nothing was more impressive than what Kareem did in 1976. He posted an amazing stat line of 35 points on 72% shooting, 20 rebounds, 12 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. They also faced each other twice in the playoffs. Kareem has a 6-7 record against him, giving him an overall record of 25-22. Rick was part of the shocking upset in the 1973 semifinals matchup, while Kareem got his revenge with his dominant 1977 semifinal series. We go from one legendary small forward to another, and that's Elgin Baylor. They faced each other 5 times during Kareem's rookie season, and he went 2-3 against Elgin. Age and injuries prevented Baylor from recording his normal dominant production. On the flip side, Kareem gave him a preview of what he was going to do for the rest of his long career. In their second meeting, he posted 46 points, 24 rebounds, and 6 assists. The next player is Hall of Fame point guard Dave Bing. They faced each other 44 times, and Kareem went 31-13 against him. This was just complete domination by the captain. There were 3 times where he scored over 40 points, 5 times he pulled down over 20 rebounds, and 3 times that he recorded a triple-double. On one of those occasions, he blocked 10 shots. In Dave's case, he had a great performance in 1970 when he produced 42 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists. We transition to his bitter rival from the 80s, Larry Bird. They have had some legendary battles, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. But Kareem went away with bragging rights. He went 10-8 against him. Their best head-to-head battle came in 1981. Kareem went for 32 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, while Larry recorded 36 points, 21 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, and 3 blocks. These two icons faced each other 3 times in the finals. Kareem once again has the edge with 11-8 playoff record, giving him an overall record of 21-16. Both players performed great as the numbers indicate, and both came up big on various occasions. In fact, both players won the Finals MVP in 1984 and 1985. Speaking of rivals, we move on to his biggest one, and that's Wilt Chamberlain. They faced each other a total of 28 times, and this will be as close as you can get. For the regular season, Kareem went 8-9 against him. The numbers tell us that Wilt was in the stage of his career where he focused much more on defense than scoring. That explains the difference in their scoring numbers. As far as notable performances, there was a game in 1972 where Kareem scored 50 points over him, while Wilt recorded over 25 rebounds 3 times. For the postseason, they faced each other twice. Kareem went 6-5 against him, giving him an overall record of 14-14. They both got the best of each other during their title years in 1971 and 1972. We move on to two of the greatest Celtics players, Dave Cowens and John Havlicek. It was always a battle when they were on the court together, and their head-to-head record reflects that. Kareem went 20-16 against them. The numbers show that these three players had no weaknesses, but Kareem was on another level. There were 9 games where he scored over 40 points. That includes 3 50-point performances. There was also a game where he pulled down 30 rebounds. Hondo had some impressive games as well. He recorded 3 triple-doubles, and there was one game he had 43 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. But this duo had the last laugh in the classic 1974 finals. The Celtics won 4-3, giving Kareem an overall record of 23-20. Here's what they averaged for that series. The Celtics needed every bit of this duo's production to beat the Bucks. Havlicek won the Finals MVP for his superb play. Kareem was able to add his greatest moment when he forced Game 7 with his clutch shot. The next player is another fantastic all-around big man, Billy Cunningham. Kareem has a dominant record of 16-6. There were 5 times where he scored over 40 points and 5 times where he pulled down over 20 rebounds. In his legendary 1972 season, he posted 53 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 assists. They faced each other in the playoffs once during Kareem's rookie season, and the Bucks won 4-1. That gives him an overall record of 20-7. Billy held his own in that series. He even had 50 points and 10 rebounds in Game 4, but Kareem was just too much to handle. We move on to New York Knicks legend Dave DeBusschere. They faced each other 23 times from 1970 to 1974. Kareem went 8-15 against him. The Knicks were a force to be reckoned with during that time, and the Bucks had trouble beating this deep team. They faced each other once in the playoffs, and the Knicks won 4-1 in their 1970 matchup. That gives them an overall record of 9-19. Here are the numbers that they averaged for that series. We transition to the high-flying shooting guard, Clyde Drexler. This one is not as close as you might think. Kareem went 27-6 against him. The numbers show the different stages that they were in their careers. For the majority of their matchups, they were not at their best. However, Clyde did give him a nice retirement gift in their final meeting. He went for 43 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 steals. They also faced each other twice in the playoffs, and Kareem went 7-1. That gives him an overall record of 34-7. Here are the combined averages for those 2 playoff series. Speaking of high-flying players, we have the Doctor, Julius Erving. They faced each other 41 times, and this one will be extremely close. For the regular season, Kareem went 13-13. They both recorded great all-around numbers, but Julius was a little underwhelming in the scoring department. Kareem's best performance was in the double overtime thriller in 1982. He went for 41 points, 19 rebounds, and 5 blocks. They faced each other 3 times in the finals. He went 7-8 against them, giving him an overall record of 20-21. The Doctor usually saved his best in the playoffs, and that's what we see here. There were so many great moments that they had against each other, but nothing was greater than Game 5 of the 1980 finals. Julius went for 36 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks, while Kareem had 40 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 blocks. He did all that while playing through a sprained ankle in the 4th quarter. The next player is Patrick Ewing. Even though there's a 15-year difference, Kareem still had his way with his Hall of Fame center. He went 6-2 against him. His domination even includes the individual battle. This proves how great he was, even in his advanced age. In fact, in the 1985-86 season, he went for 40 points on 68% shooting, and he had 6 blocks. We go from one Knicks legend to another, and that's Walt Frazier. He went 17-19 against him. Including the playoffs, his overall record is 18-23. As previously mentioned, the Bucks had some trouble defeating this team. However, Kareem also gave this team some heartache. There were 9 games where he pulled down over 20 rebounds. There were also 3 games in which he scored over 40 points. Clyde had a couple of 30-point games and a handful of double-digit assist performances. Now here's what Frazier averaged for the 1970 Division Finals Series. This next player was just as cool as Clyde, and that's the Iceman, George Gervin. He has a record of 18-17 against him. George is best known for his scoring ability, and there were 2 games where he scored over 40 points. But during this time, the Spurs were never known for their defense, and Kareem took full advantage. He had 7 games where he shot over 70%. He had a game where he recorded 20 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 5 blocks. They also faced each other twice in the playoffs, and Kareem went 8-2 against him, giving him an overall record of 26-19. The Spurs just caught Kareem and the Lakers at the wrong time, who were just too deep for them to handle. We move on to 76ers legend, Hal Greer. As we mentioned for Billy Cunningham, this was a bit lopsided. Kareem went 15-3 against him. Including the playoffs, his overall record is 19-4. By the time Kareem came into the league, Hal Greer was past his prime. That's reflected in the numbers. That is not indicative of how great of a player he was at his best. We transition to the best power forward from the 70s, Elvin Hayes. They faced each other 60 times, and Kareem dominated with a 43-17 record. The Big E seemed to have trouble scoring efficiently when facing a Kareem-led team. But that's not to say that he didn't have his moments. He had 41 points and 19 rebounds in 1971. He also had 3 games where he pulled down over 20 rebounds. As far as Kareem, there were 6 games where he recorded over 20 rebounds. He also had 2 40-point games. In one instance, he had 41 points, 21 rebounds, and 8 assists. The next player needs no introduction, and that's Michael Jordan. The NBA world had the privilege of watching these 2 greats go head-to-head 8 times. Kareem went 4-4 against him. As the numbers indicate, he was in the final stages of his career once Jordan was introduced to the league. He was playing a specific role, while MJ was a ball of energy. There were 2 games where he scored over 40 points. We go from the scoring machine to the rebounding machine, Jerry Lucas. Kareem went 14-7 against him. Even though he was listed at 6'8", he went toe-to-toe with Kareem in the rebounding department. He had 4 games of 20-plus rebounds, while Kareem only had 2. They also faced each other once in the playoffs, and the Bucks defeated the Warriors 4-1 in their 1971 matchup, giving him an overall record of 18-8. Here's what they averaged for that series. Now let's see how the player who was second all-time in scoring played against the player who was third all-time, Karl Malone. Kareem went 12-6 against him. The numbers aren't as staggering as we might have hoped. That's because neither were at their peak while playing each other. In the Millman's case, he had 2 games of scoring over 30 points while shooting north of 70%. They also faced each other in the classic 1988 semifinal series. The Lakers won 4-3, giving Kareem an overall record of 16-9. Karl was fantastic in that series, while the 41-year-old had his struggles. This next player was one of his biggest rivals, Moses Malone. They faced each other a total of 41 times. Kareem went 20-14 against him in the regular season. Kareem won the head-to-head battle, but Moses posted better numbers. What's interesting is that Kareem only scored over 35 points once, while Moses did it 5 times. In the rebounding department, Kareem pulled down over 15 rebounds twice. Moses did it 18 times. That includes 6 20-plus rebounding games. They also faced each other twice in the playoffs, and Kareem went 1-6 against them, giving him an overall record of 21-20. Again, the numbers show that Moses outplayed Kareem in both the 1981 first-round series and the 1983 finals. We move on to the incredibly skillful Pete Maravich. Kareem went 23-10 against him. He was just a monster against Pistol Pete, whose teams rarely had a big man that could contain him. There was one game where he nearly posted a quadruple double. In 1978, he had 32 points, 23 rebounds, 9 assists, and 8 blocks. In Pete's legendary 1977 season, he had 2 40-point games while shooting north of 50%. The next player is one of the most underrated big men, Bob McAdoo. Kareem went 21-7 against him. The Big Mac is most known for his scoring, but Kareem has him beat in that department, as well as every other category. There were 7 games where he posted over 5 blocks, and 7 games he pulled down over 20 rebounds. His most impressive game came in 1976, when he recorded the ridiculous stat line of 30 points on 13 of 15 shooting, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 7 steals, and 3 blocks. In McAdoo's case, there were 2 games in which he scored over 40 points. We transition to his Boston Celtics rival, Kevin McHale. He went 9-8 against him. Including the playoffs, his overall record is 20-16. For nearly half of the regular season matchups, Kevin was coming off the bench. So that explains why his numbers are considerably lower than what we're used to seeing with him. The playoff numbers are a better representation of how great he was. There were 8 times during their intense finals matchups that he shot over 60% from the field. The next player will help us appreciate Kareem's impressive durability. He played against Reggie Miller 3 times, who was 18 years younger. He went 2-1 against a 3-point shooting legend. The numbers highlight the age difference. One was on his way out, while the other was just getting started. We move on to Black Jesus himself, Earl Monroe. Kareem went 26-15 against him. They faced each other for a good 10 years, and these are about the standard numbers they would post. But the numbers do not say just how entertaining it was to watch Earl the Pearl play. His best performance came in 1976 when he posted 34 points on 72% shooting and 10 assists. They also faced each other in the 1971 finals. The Bucks swept the Bullets, giving him an overall record of 30-15. Kareem was absolutely dominant as he torched Baltimore all series long on both ends of the floor. We transition to another incredibly skilled player, Hakeem Olajuwon. These are arguably 2 of the greatest big men of all time, but this wasn't as close as you might have thought it was. Kareem went 18-5 against him. He went toe-to-toe with him in the scoring department, while Hakeem was a more active rim protector. There were 3 games Kareem scored over 40 points against a defensive legend. That includes his dominant performance in 1986 when he had 46 points on 70% shooting. The Lakers simply had the Rockets' number during the 80s, which made their one playoff matchup so shocking. The Rockets beat the Lakers 4-1 in the 1986 Conference Finals, giving him an overall record of 19-9. This was Hakeem's coming out party, and he dominated the defending champions. In Game 2, he had 6 blocks. In the following game, he had 40 points and 12 rebounds. The next player is also known for his durability, and that's Robert Parrish. They faced each other a total of 59 times. In the regular season, Kareem went 21-12 against him. The Chief isn't considered to be in the same class as the captain, but he should get credit for the way he always played him tough. They also faced each other 4 times in the playoffs. Kareem went 15-11 against him, which gives him an overall record of 36-23. As expected, Kareem posted greater numbers in all categories. We move on to Chicago Bulls legend, Scottie Pippen. They only faced each other 4 times, and Kareem went 1-3 against him. Scottie was coming off the bench for 3 of those games, but in their final meeting, he gave a preview of the type of player he would become. He recorded 21 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Next up is the captain of the New York Knicks, Willis Reed. Kareem went 5-11 against him. Including the playoffs, his overall record is 6-15. The numbers might suggest that Kareem had his way against him, but there was a Bill Russell component to Willis Reed that allowed his teams to be so successful. That helped him even more so during the years when he was limited due to injuries. But in the 1970 playoffs, we saw what he could do during his peak. He was very efficient against a rookie, and he taught him a lesson or two before his ascension in the following years. We move on to Kareem's greatest teammate from the 70s, Oscar Robertson. They faced each other 7 times in Kareem's rookie year, and he went 5-2 against the Big O. Both Oscar and the Cincinnati Royals were looking for a change, and Milwaukee took advantage of their poor situation. But he was still an all-star caliber player who had a lot to give, as Kareem would quickly see in the following season. We transition to the bad boy Pistons energy guy and defensive specialist, Dennis Rodman. Kareem went 3-3 against him. During Rodman's time with the Pistons, his numbers were much more balanced as displayed here. In Kareem's case, he had already taken a back seat to Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and even Byron Scott during the late 80s. In the playoffs, he went 4-7 against Dennis, giving him an overall record of 7-10. Here are the numbers that they recorded for the 1988 and 1989 Final Series. The next player is the point guard legend, John Stockton. Kareem went 16-7 against him. Including the playoffs, his overall record is 20-10. Let's not forget that John played behind Ricky Green for his first 3 years. That's why his numbers are down to his standards. Once he reached the starting lineup, there were 10 games that he posted over 15 assists, if we include the playoffs. His best game came in the classic Game 5 of their 1988 semifinal series. He had 24 assists to go along with 23 points and 5 steals. That is tied for the most assists in a playoff game ever. We move on to another iconic point guard, Isaiah Thomas. How did the captain fare against a player that sent him to retirement? He went 10-6 against Zeke. Including the playoffs, his overall record is 14-13. As the numbers indicate, Isaiah was putting up staggering numbers before the championship years. For example, in 1988, he put up 42 points and 10 assists. In 1985, he had one of his greatest individual games. He posted 30 points on 70% shooting, 20 assists, and 4 steals. Kareem's best game came in Isaiah's rookie year. He had 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 blocks. For the playoffs, Isaiah had the most inspiring performance in Game 6 of the 1988 Finals. That was when he had 43 points on 56% shooting, 8 assists, and 6 steals. And he did most of his damage while playing with a sprained ankle. The next player is the one that arguably defended Kareem the best, Nate the Great Thurmond. He went 24-13 against him. Kareem is known for his efficiency, but there were 7 games Nate contained him to under 40% shooting. That's just in the regular season alone. For the playoffs, Kareem went 10-6 against him, giving him an overall record of 34-19. The playoffs is where he established himself as a Kareem stopper. In the 1972 and 1973 playoffs, he contained Kareem to under 40% shooting 5 times. I believe he was the main reason why the Warriors were able to upset the Bucks in their 1973 series. We go from one underrated center to another, and that's Wes Unseld. Kareem went 24-17 against him. Wes wasn't the scorer or shot blocker that Kareem was, but he did everything else just as well. In the rebounding department, there were 17 combined games where they recorded over 20 rebounds. Kareem had 9 and Unseld had 8. I believe Kareem's best game came in 1971 when he had 39 points and 27 rebounds. In that same season, Wes went for 27 points and 22 rebounds. As we mentioned for Earl Monroe, the Bucks swept the Bullets in the 1971 Finals, giving him an overall record of 28-17. Here are the numbers that they averaged for that series. We follow the trend of underrated centers, and we move on to Bill Walton. Kareem went 16-10 against him. In Bill's rookie season, Kareem wanted to shut down the hype surrounding the UCLA center. In their very first meeting together, Kareem goes for 50 points, 15 rebounds, 11 assists, and 3 blocks. In the very next meeting, Kareem recorded 48 points. But Walton had the last laugh for the playoffs. Kareem went 3-6 against him, giving him an overall record of 19-16. Bill was superb in the 1977 Conference Finals, which led to the Blazers sweeping the Lakers. On the other hand, Kareem played a major role in the Lakers winning the 1987 Finals. The next player is the logo himself, Jerry West. Kareem went 10-11 against him. He caught Jerry in the final years of his career, but they still had some epic showdowns. Most notably was in the Lakers' 1972 season when they were in the middle of their 33-game winning streak. Jerry went for 37 points and 13 assists, while Kareem had 40 points and 18 rebounds. In the playoffs, Kareem went 2-5 against him, giving him an overall record of 12-16. Kareem had the misfortune to see Jerry's final NBA game. He only played a total of 14 minutes of the 1974 semifinals. Unfortunately, he wasn't the same player for their 2 playoff series. We move on to Hall of Fame point guard Lenny Wilkens. Kareem went 22-4 against him. As shown in their head-to-head record and Kareem's numbers, Lenny never really had a teammate that had any chance of stopping him. There were 2 times that Kareem scored over 50 points against him. The last player is the human highlight film, Dominique Wilkins. How did the Atlanta Hawks fare against the Showtime Lakers? Not so good. Kareem went 11-3 against them. Although the Hawks didn't have much success against the Lakers, it was a show every time they faced each other, especially when Dominique was making plays like these. After going through all 41 players, what was Kareem's overall record? In the regular season, he was 626-371. In the playoffs, it was 133-120. That gives him an overall record of 759-491. Kareem was dominant against the very best. Which player did he dominate the most? That would be Lenny Wilkens. He beat him 22 out of their 26 meetings. He averaged 33.4 points on 57% shooting, 15.9 rebounds, 4.8 assists. Which player had the most success against Kareem? It was Willis Reed. He had an overall record of 6-15 against him. The player that posted the best numbers was Michael Jordan. He averaged 31.3 points, 6.8 assists, 5.8 rebounds, and 2.3 steals per game. Which player did Kareem perform the best against in the playoffs? I would say it was George Gervin. He went 8-2 against him and averaged 25.4 points on 53% shooting, 8.4 rebounds, and 3.3 blocks per game. And I would say Moses Malone performed the best against him in the playoffs. He went 1-6 against him. Moses averaged 28.1 points, 17.9 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks per game. Well, that concludes this video. Were you surprised by the results? Which one of these matchups caught your eye the most? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.